The phone rang at 6:17 a.m. Michael Turner stared at it from across his quiet kitchen. The screen showed a number he hadn't seen in over 15 years. Dad. Michael's chest tightened. He let it ring. The phone stopped and silence returned. For a moment, he felt relief, then guilt, then something deeper, something unresolved that had followed him for half his life. Michael was 40, a respected financial analyst, a husband, and a father of 2. On paper, his life looked steady, safe, successful. But there was a fracture running through it, one he never talked about. His father, Richard Turner. They hadn't spoken since Michael was 24. Back then, Michael had been young, angry, and convinced he was right. Richard was strict, old school, the kind of man who believed love was shown through providing, not through words. Michael had grown up craving approval that rarely came. The breaking point was Michael's decision to leave law school for finance. Richard exploded. "You're throwing your future away?" his father had said. "No," Michael replied. "I'm choosing my own." Words were exchanged, lines were crossed, and pride hardened on both sides. Michael left that night and never came back. Years passed. A wedding, 2 kids, a mortgage, promotions, and silence. Michael told himself he was fine without his father, that some relationships weren't worth saving. But every Father's Day felt heavy, every question from his children. "Why don't we see Grandpa?" felt unfinished. The phone rang again. This time, Michael picked it up before he could think. "Hello." There was breathing on the other end, then a voice older, weaker. "Michael, it's Dad." Michael closed his eyes. "I didn't know who else to call," Richard continued. "I'm at Mercy Hospital. I had a stroke." The words landed softly, but their impact was heavy. "I'm okay," Richard added quickly. "But the doctor says time matters now." Michael didn't respond. "I'm not calling to argue," Richard said. I'd like to see you, if you're willing." The call ended. Michael sat down, hands shaking. That evening, he told his wife, Emily. She listened quietly. "You don't have to go," she said gently. "I know," Michael replied, "but I think I need to." The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and old memories. Richard looked smaller in the bed, frailer. The man who once seemed unbreakable now struggled to sit upright. Their eyes met. "You look tired," Michael finally said. Richard smiled faintly. "So do you." The tension between them was thick, but it wasn't anger. It was sadness. "I didn't know how to be the father you needed," Richard said. "My own father never told me he was proud. I thought if I pushed you hard enough, you'd succeed." Michael swallowed. "I didn't need pressure. I needed support." "I know that now," Richard replied. Tears formed in Michael's eyes. He hadn't expected that. "I spent years waiting for you to call," Richard admitted. "Then I told myself you were better off without me." Michael exhaled slowly. "I told myself the same thing." They sat in silence. This time not as enemies, but as two people grieving lost time. Over the next weeks, Michael visited often. They talked about life, mistakes, and the cost of pride. Richard met his grandchildren for the first time. At first, they were shy, then curious, then affectionate. One afternoon, Michael watched his father help his son with a puzzle, patience softening his features. Something inside Michael loosened. Healing wasn't instant. Some conversations were still uncomfortable. But forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past, it was about refusing to let it control the future. One evening, as Michael prepared to leave, Richard grabbed his hand. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. In that moment, Michael felt something break and mend at the same time. Months later, Richard attended a family dinner at Michael's home. Laughter filled the room. Emily caught Michael watching his father with a soft smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Michael said. "I just wish we hadn't waited so long." Emily squeezed his hand. "At least you didn't wait forever." That night, Michael reflected on a simple yet powerful truth. Some calls come late, but not too late. And forgiveness doesn't change the past, it changes who we become. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone you should reach out to, please like, share, and subscribe to Tales Studio for more stories about family, forgiveness, and real human emotions.